When Tom Hanks walked through a small street in suburban America amidst the cold winter wind, most people paid him no mind. Just another figure blending into the hurried crowd, an anonymous face amid the white breaths puffing out in the frigid air. The humble art stand, pieced together from scraps of wood and a tattered cloth, stood faintly by the roadside, gusts of wind rattling the sketches in the hands of the young girl behind it. No one stopped. No one glanced her way, the howling wind drowning out her faint breaths. Just an ordinary scene in the bleakness of a fading winter day. But then, as that man slowed his pace, his hands tucked in his coat pockets gently brushing a painting, his gaze settling on the pale face of Emily Harper, everything changed. For this was no ordinary passerby, and this girl, she was not merely an artist. She was a warrior painting to snatch her life from the jaws of death. Emily Harper was not just a young girl standing behind a rickety art stand. She was a soul fighting with every stroke to hold on to her breath. 18 years old, so frail that the winter wind seemed capable of blowing her away. Her pale blue eyes shimmered with both the pain of illness and a fire that refused to surrender. Her blonde hair, tangled and brittle from months of harsh chemotherapy, clung to her ashen face. Yet her hands, though weak and chilled, gripped the brush as if it were life itself. Born into a struggling working-class family in suburban America, Emily grew up amid vast meadows and the old paint cans her grandfather left behind, art becoming the place where she poured her dreams amid a harsh reality. Now, facing a bone cancer that gnawed at her body, she sought no mercy. She painted with sweat mingled with tears, painted to pay for treatment, painted so her parents wouldn't have to sell their last shred of hope. Emily was not just an artist. She was an emblem of unwavering resolve, a diminutive warrior wielding each brushstroke to challenge fate. But the moment that man paused, his gentle brown eyes beneath the brim of his cap sweeping over the trembling sketches in the cold wind, the air around the simple art stand grew heavy with anticipation. He did not rush past like the other passersby, nor overlook Emily's handwritten sign. Instead, standing still, silently absorbing the story hidden in each faded stroke. Then, with a deliberate, meaningful motion, he pulled a checkbook from his coat pocket, writing a figure that stole Emily's breath, her chilled hands nearly dropping the brush onto the frozen ground. It was not just an ordinary transaction, not merely an exchange of money for art, but a warm breeze melting the icy grip of fate. For that man, Tom Hanks, had not only bought a painting, he had kindled a flame of hope in Emily's misty eyes, transforming her from a fragile silhouette in the winter chill into a radiant beacon amid the icy tempest of her life. Emily Harper sat huddled in a frigid clinic room, her thin, frail legs trembling on the metal chair, her pale blue eyes wide as the doctor, with a low, somber voice, announced that the bone cancer had spread. The harsh white glow of fluorescent lights bathed her ashen face, highlighting features so delicate they seemed on the verge of shattering. He added that surgery and chemotherapy were urgently needed to save her. But then he paused, his hands gripping the clipboard tightly as he delivered the brutal truth. The cost of treatment far exceeded her family's means, and without money, they could not begin. Emily bit her hand until it bled, her breath quickening as if squeezed from her lungs, not out of fear of the death lurking nearby, but from the invisible agony of knowing her body, once strong enough to race across meadows, had betrayed her, trapping her in waves of piercing pain that seared to her very bones. She felt each faint heartbeat like a clock ticking down, and in that moment, the icy room seemed to shrink, leaving only her and the merciless verdict of fate. Emily Harper's family, laborers cramped in a dilapidated little house on the outskirts of America, had been crushed under medical bills piling up like winter snowdrifts. Her father, a mechanic with a weathered face and grease-stained hands, had sold his beloved old pickup truck, the last keepsake from better days, just to scrape together some hospital funds, only to return home and sob with his head in his hands at the kitchen table when the sum proved a mere drop in the bucket. Her mother, a supermarket clerk with gaunt shoulders, worked herself to exhaustion through endless night shifts, once collapsing on the cold floor from hunger to save every penny for her daughter, her red-rimmed eyes reflecting silent anguish whenever she looked at Emily. They had lost everything, from simple dreams of a peaceful home to the last flicker of hope in an empty bank account, and each sigh they let out cut through Emily's heart like a winter gust. Debt enveloped the family like the darkness of the season, and in that cracked, drafty house, Emily felt her parents' despair like a blade twisting deep within her, making her fear not her own death, but the day her family would break apart because of her. But in a small room thick with the scent of old paint, where a feeble yellow lamp cast light on peeling walls, Emily Harper found a spark amid the darkness of despair. She sat there, her chilled hands clutching the first painting she'd made with her grandfather before he passed. A scene of America's meadows stretching under the sun, now a reminder of the days she'd run free. Her pale blue eyes, though blurred with tears, suddenly blazed with a quiet fire as she thought of her parents, who had sacrificed everything to keep her alive just one more day. The pain of bone cancer stabbed through her like a knife, but greater still is the agony of watching her family crumble because of her, and in that moment, her heart pounded, not to count down time, but to swear an oath to herself. Emily vowed she would not let her parents lose their last shred of hope. She would paint, she would fight, even if her body ached beyond obedience to her will, even if only a fragile breath remained. With a brush in hand, she turned pain into power, determined to use art to save herself and keep her family's flame from dying out in the bitter cold of winter. Emily Harper began her journey with weakened hands, setting up a small art stand from scraps of wood and a tattered cloth in the yard of their rundown home, where the winter wind swept through with bone-chilling force. On the wobbly table, she laid out paintings born of sweat and tears, scenes of America's sprawling meadows laced with the shadow of her illness, each stroke a silent plea from a heart nearing exhaustion. Her frail legs trembled as she placed a handwritten sign before the stand, its scrawled words faintly visible in the dim light. My paintings, my hope. The icy gusts whipped through, shaking each artwork as if testing her resolve. But Emily stood firm, her tangled blonde hair fluttering in the wind, her pale blue eyes alight with an unshakable determination. She poured every ounce of her remaining strength into those pieces, not to boast her skill, but to transform art into a lifeline, a flame to warm herself and her family through the harshness of winter. But the world around Emily Harper seemed indifferent to her efforts. Passersby brushed past her rickety art stand, their cold gazes sweeping over her paintings, as if they were meaningless objects. A few pausing only to mutter that who would buy art from a girl about to die, their voices blending into the icy whistle of the wind. A tall man in a heavy coat stopped, eyeing her with a mocking smile, then tossed an empty water can at her stand, his gruff voice ringing out that, "Don't waste your time, no one cares," before turning and walking away. The can rolled across the frozen ground, its harsh clatter echoing in Emily's heart like a knife's thrust, and she collapsed onto the cold earth, her arms clutching her paintings as if holding onto her last shred of faith, tears spilling out to mingle with the throbbing pain of her bones tormenting her body. The winter wind sliced through her fragile skin, but she still whispered to herself that, "I have to be strong." her faint voice rising amidst the biting chill, a vow refusing to yield to the apathy of fate and humankind. Then one day, amid the frigid grip of winter and ceaseless howling winds, an elderly widower approached Emily Harper's art stand, his clouded eyes hidden behind thick glasses turning toward her, as if sensing something profound. He paused, his trembling hand brushing over a painting of America's meadows stretching under the sun, a simple work Emily had crafted with all her longing for healthier days. Tears rolled down his wrinkled face as he choked out that, "I see my wife in this," his frail voice carrying a lifetime of lost memories. He quietly pulled $40 from his worn coat pocket, his last savings placing it in Emily's hands with a warm grip, as if passing her a piece of strength. Emily clasped his hand tightly, tears welling up not from pain, but from the first spark of hope flickering in her heart, a tiny flame strong enough to warm her in the icy winter. It was her first victory, a simple yet precious moment when her art not only sold, but touched another soul, igniting a belief that she could keep fighting. One bitter winter afternoon, as Emily Harper stood shivering by her unsteady art stand, a young reporter approached, his frayed coat flapping in the wind, his eyes lighting up with curiosity as he spotted her. He silently raised his camera, its lens capturing Emily with her tangled blonde hair whipping in the cold breeze, her gaunt hands clutching her paintings as if clinging to a fragile hope. He stood there, listening to her story, from the bone-wrenching pain to the fierce resolve that turned art into her lifeline, and his shoulders trembled slightly as he felt the weight of her suffering. That night, he wrote an article for the local paper, its headline simple yet powerful. 18-year-old girl paints to survive. The piece, paired with photos of Emily in the dim light of a winter day, spread swiftly through the small streets, reaching thousands of hearts, stirring whispers of admiration for a girl who refused to bow to fate. It was the first moment the world learned of Emily, but within her, the flame of hope still burned faintly, for the charity raised was not yet enough to push back the darkness enveloping her life. Word of Emily Harper began to ripple through the suburban streets, and neighbors who once passed her by without a glance now returned, bringing thick blankets to shield her from the winter wind. They gathered around her shaky art stand, their eyes no longer distant, but filled with reverence. A few quietly pulling out wallets and placing down sums higher than her asking price, their hands shaking as they touched paintings brimming with both hope and pain. A middle-aged woman, her silver hair tousled by the wind, set down $50 without taking a piece, whispering that she just wanted her to live, her voice thick with emotion like a prayer. But Emily still shivered beneath the ragged cloth covering her stand, her thin legs numb on the frozen ground, her pale blue eyes glinting with fear as she counted her remaining days. Though the community's kindness began to bloom like the first snowflakes, the money was still mere droplets in an ocean of medical debt, and within her, anxiety growled like the cold wind, a reminder that true salvation remained somewhere distant, beyond her grasp. As the winter wind softened, a middle-aged man approached Emily Harper's wobbly art stand, his cap pulled low over his face, his thick coat fluttering as he stood silently before her trembling sketches. He slowly reached out, selecting a painting of a family by America's meadows under the sun, a modest piece priced at $120, his gentle brown eyes seeming to pierce through the pain and resolve in each faded stroke. The air around the stand hushed in strange stillness as he pulled a checkbook from his pocket, writing $80,000 in firm script, then lifted his head, removing his cap to reveal the face of Tom Hanks, an icon of compassion and strength from the silver screen. He smiled, his warm voice cutting through the chill. Little girl, this painting is worth a lifetime. Emily froze, her chilled hands letting the brush slip to the icy ground, tears streaming as she realized the hero from her father's favorite films now stood before her, not on a screen but in reality, bringing a miracle she'd never dared to dream of. The winter wind seemed to still, and the space around Emily Harper's fragile art stand erupted as the crowd recognized the man before them. Shouts tore through the day's quiet. "It's Tom Hanks!" And in an instant, people swarmed her, their hands snatching up the remaining paintings as if they were priceless fragments of hope, too precious to miss. A man clutched a meadow scene to his chest, tears falling as he murmured that she was the wind of the plains who warmed his heart, while a little girl tugged her mother's sleeve, eyes red, begging to buy the last piece to help her live. Cries, cheers, and the wind intertwined, turning the small suburban street into a sea of emotion, where those once indifferent now bore witness to a wondrous moment. Paintings once overlooked were cradled in their arms, and Emily, a frail figure in the winter cold, became the center of awe and tears, a small flame now blazing brightly amid a crowd weeping with her. Tom Hanks bent down, grasping Emily Harper's chilled hands, his gentle brown eyes radiating warmth and resolve as he said, "Little girl, the world needs your courage." It was not just a fleeting comfort, but a heartfelt affirmation, a warm breeze dispelling the icy shroud that had once enveloped her life. His action, writing a check for $80,000 to buy a simple painting, not only brought the funds to save Emily from cancer's scythe, but also cast a light of recognition on her talent and unyielding spirit, transforming her faded brushstrokes into a symbol of hope and strength. In that moment, Emily felt the weight of human kindness, a force greater than the bone-deep pain that had tormented her. And for the first time amidst the cold winter, she believed she was not merely surviving, but truly living, cherished by a man revered by the world. His deed not only altered her fate, but also became a flame of inspiration, reminding everyone that even in darkness, a small gesture can illuminate an entire life. The image of Tom Hanks embracing Emily Harper in the cold winter wind spread across social media like a wildfire racing through dry fields. A simple moment holding the power to stir millions of hearts across America and beyond. Newspapers everywhere published her story, bold headlines on front pages dubbing her the painter of will, from small suburban papers to national TV networks, all recounting the journey of a young girl who painted through pain to seize her life back. The rusty mailbox outside Emily's dilapidated family home, once stuffed only with debt notices, now overflowed with orders from around the globe. Crumpled envelopes carrying praise and hope from strangers who had never met her. A prestigious gallery in Chicago extended an invitation to Emily, offering to host a special exhibition of her faded paintings, pledging all proceeds to aid children with terminal illnesses, turning her personal tale into a warm wind blowing through other lives. From an unknown girl in a freezing winter, Emily now stood as a vivid icon, her name echoing worldwide as proof that art and courage can transcend any limit. With the money from Tom Hanks and subsequent buyers, Emily Harper walked into the hospital with steady legs, her pale blue eyes gleaming with her first smile after months trapped by pain. Chemotherapy and surgery, once distant dreams beyond reach, were now fully funded, coursing through her body like a cool stream banishing the dark shadow of bone cancer that had weighed her down. For the first time within the stark white hospital walls, she stood without feeling the stabbing agony in her bones, her breaths even and unbroken by wrenching pain, her smile radiant like spring sunshine piercing through dark clouds. In that hospital room, she clung to her parents, their tears bursting forth not from despair, but from uncontainable joy. Her father whispering in a hoarse voice that he never thought this day would come. Her mother stroking her hair, weeping with happiness as she felt life return to her embrace. The debts that had once swirled around the family like a cold winter gust melted away. And Emily, once a frail girl by an art stand, now stood firm with renewed health, carrying fresh hope for a future she had fought to claim. One peaceful morning, as Emily Harper sat by the window, gazing at the small street that had been her battlefield, a handwritten letter reached her, its plain envelope bearing the steady script of Tom Hanks, the man who had changed her life with a single act. Inside he wrote, "Emily, you are the light I found in the cold wind. Keep painting." Those words, brief yet laden with humanity, blew through her soul like a warm breeze, each one a recognition and encouragement from a man the world admired. She finished reading and pressed the letter to her chest, tears rolling down a face no longer pale, not from sorrow or pain, but from a profound happiness in knowing her journey was not just a fight to survive, but a story that touched the heart of a true hero. That letter was more than a note. It was a flame fueling her strength, urging Emily to pick up her brush and paint the dreams she once thought would remain buried in the freezing winter. From a frail girl trembling in the cold winter wind, Emily Harper rose to become an enduring symbol of perseverance, talent, and humanity, a flame that not only lit her own life, but spread to millions of hearts worldwide. The first painting Tom Hanks bought, a scene of a family by America's meadows under the sun, now hung proudly in a renowned Chicago gallery beside a small plaque inscribed, "Painted in pain, lived in hope." That artwork was not just a memento, but a living testament to Emily's journey, from faded strokes at a rickety stand to the glow of compassion that pulled her from illness's shadow. Her name was no longer a faint scribble on a handmade sign, but a story retold in articles, interviews, and hearts that would never forget. An ordinary white girl from the suburbs who became a meadow breeze sweeping across all boundaries, proving that will and art can conquer any adversity. Emily Harper's story stands as vivid proof that even in the iciest winter gusts, where hope seems frozen solid, a tiny flame can warm the entire world. From frail hands crafting faded paintings by a scrap wood stand, she showed that art is not just a means to scrape by, but a power to overcome fate, linking strangers into a vast community of compassion. Her journey reminds us all that every pain can become a brushstroke, every tear can bloom into light, if someone pauses to believe in its worth. Emily fought not only for herself, but for the silent dreams of millions, delivering a message that no matter how deep the darkness, a single steadfast spark can make the sky of hope blaze again, and the courage of an ordinary girl can shake humanity.